guys, welcome. I'm so excited to be here. How are you feeling today?
Good. How are you?
I don't know why, guys, but my wave, like I have a YouTube wave if we're doing video. For some reason, I have to use both hands now.
I know, it's so funny. Like when you're on the street, do you ever do this? Like not really, right? You don't know when you pass.
I want to like fill the screen with action or something.
So weird, guys. We're excited to be on YouTube. The three of us are here today, the All Ears English team, and we want to show you good examples today of group conversation, right? Especially on the IELTS exam, you need conversation topic. You need response topics, things to say on the speaking test, on the writing test, even when you're asked your opinion on something, what are you going to say? Well, when you listen to group conversations like these ones in this program, Conversations and Coffee, you have those topics right at your fingertips, right, guys?
Exactly. Guys, I mean, we're getting questions from IELTS students all the time about like, well, what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to write? I don't even think about this in my first language. Like what? So guys, I mean, this is what we tell our students to do. You guys have to have the input, right? You have to come across these ideas and vocab. And today, guys, we're diving into topics that always come up on IELTS, right? Namely, education and children, right? Like these are two topics that happen all the time on IELTS, guys.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to tell you guys exactly what the topic is for today in just a minute, but I want to invite you to come over and sign up right now to our Conversations and Coffee subscription program. Guys, when you sign up, you get one group conversation a week. So you get to hear our team talking fast, talking on top of each other, interrupting each other, and having a real conversation, right, guys?
Yeah, exactly. They're unscripted, right? It's exactly the kind of conversation that you're going to hear in real life. But it also does help you practice for IELTS listening.
Totally.
Because if you can understand a group conversation with multiple speakers, you'll understand in part 1 and 3 when there are three speakers.
Anything.
And it's scripted. You'll understand so much better, right? So yes, you guys sign up, subscribe at allearsenglish.com/fast so you can get this great practice for the IELTS exam.
So good. So guys, let's get into the topic for today. So the question today is, do you guys think that there are good alternatives, viable, legitimate alternatives to normal traditional schooling? And when we say normal traditional schooling, it means going to school, taking the bus to school, and sitting in a classroom from 9 to 3, right? Are there good alternatives to that? What are your thoughts? I mean, you guys are both parents and you take an active role in your kids' education.
Aubrey and I are like,
I'm sure you have some thoughts.
I definitely have thoughts. It's funny that I would have answered this question differently pre-COVID and kids having to be home and going to school full-time from home. Yeah. I think I maybe would have answered like, yeah, if I had time, I could homeschool. And now I know that no, I can't. It takes a special kind of parent to be able to have the patience and to make that successful, especially if you have more than one child. But so for me personally, I think it very much depends on the person, on the parent, on the educator, what can be successful if there are valid options. Because for me, no, there are no other options.
Well, there's a couple like key ideas there, right? Like you said, for the parent, for the educator. And like, here's the thing, like most parents are not also teachers.
They're not educators,
you know
right?
mean?
Yeah.
And look, I mean, Aubrey, we're parents, we are teachers as well. Yeah. And my mom keeps saying like, oh, well, you know, James is so lucky because like you're a teacher and so it's fine. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not a 4th grade teacher.
Yeah, you teach adults. Exactly.
Yeah. And I teach English. You know what? His English is great. Like he doesn't need to learn about what I'm teaching.
But then it comes to geometry and chemistry and geography, all these things. Like there's a reason that we specialize in IELTS. Right. We have your 14 years of experience. You've been able to pass that along to me. We know IELTS, but then it comes to like 5th, 6th grade math. And I'm like Googling YouTube videos.
Fractions. And then you get into algebra. Oh my gosh. No, thank you. I would not, I dread the day if I have kids that they come to me and ask for help with their geometry homework because I struggled with geometry.
Me too.
Algebra, trigonometry, right? No, thank you. I'm going to hire a tutor.
geometry. I liked algebra because algebra is like a math language.
And there's kind of words involved in it a little bit too. So it's
equations.
kind of, yeah.
Like,
but at least we have a lot of resources with the internet at our disposal. Like when I was young and I would ask my parents for help with my homework, there was nothing they're just like, you should have asked your teacher more questions. Totally. They had no resources. So that's one thing that's really lucky. We have technology at least to help us a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, what are your thoughts on boarding schools, guys? Because a lot of, sometimes kids will go to boarding school and live at school. What do you think about that situation? This is another way of being schooled. What do you think about that idea?
It's interesting because for me, the way I grew up, if someone's sent to boarding school, it's because their parents are sending them away for behavior issues. Like no one would just be like, now it's time to go to boarding school for a perfectly normal, well-adjusted child.
Okay.
But I know that that's not how it is elsewhere in the world. So it's interesting how culturally and for different families, that's very different, right?
Well, like even in the States, right? Like it can be a common thing in certain places of the East Coast.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say that
private boarding schools. Yeah. But the further west you go, we don't do that. But like same as Aubrey, right? I grew up on the West Coast, and if somebody's like going to a boarding school, that like they're going to military school because they, like set fire to something or whatever. It's not, because their family is rich.
Yeah, right. I had the opposite experience. So I grew up on the East Coast, and not a lot of kids, but some. I went to a school that was average. I went to a public school. It was an okay school. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. Somewhere in between. And once in a while, a kid would just no longer be there, and they'd say, "Oh, they went off to Miss Porter." Some of these schools are like feeder schools for Harvard and Yale and future presidents. Like it's a serious, these are a big deal. East Coast private schools for sure. And parents invest a lot of money into them. As much as college.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, it's like, the closer, like the closer you get to, the roots of England, right? Because if you look at like former colonies or whatever, like South Africa, boarding school, totally normal, right? Like James' dad went to boarding school, and when James was born, he was like, I think James should go to the boarding school I went to in South Africa for high school. I was like, hey, no, because like I want him near me as long as possible because he's cool. He's, my son. I want him here.
I enjoy his company.
And two, like, I've heard a lot of bad stories for boarding schools, and like I want to protect him as much as I can from those things.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too to think about if a family has a nanny full time, especially like a live-in nanny, that would be such a easier transition, a simpler, more obvious transition to go to boarding school, where you're not, it's not you and James's relationship, where you're spending so much time with them and you enjoy their company, and to have him go to boarding school would be so life-altering for you. Whereas if it's a nanny and sort of a little more hands-off with the parent-child relationship, then that would be maybe simple, obvious, and just the next step.
Yeah. Which I guess is, I guess that is
for a lot of families,
like a more common situation, and the kind of families we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
like
sure.
People like the rich people, Lindsay. Oh, we're like 10th generation Yale or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Big time. And they're trying to get their kids into even like middle schools and exams and crazy stuff. I don't know. I didn't know too much about it, but I knew kids who knew kids who went, right? But anyways, are there any alternatives that you guys think are a good alternative? So we've said so far that just going to school physically, to public school, is the way to go. Are there any, like, what should school look like in the future is kind of my question. If we want to really educate kids for the real world, because it's my opinion that kids aren't really educated on what they need to survive in the real world. We're taught to get better at our weaknesses. Like we identify our weaknesses. The thing we got a C in is the thing we have to panic about, not the thing we got an A in. But in the real world, you actually have to find out what you're good at. That's why we do Strengths Finder, right? And then amplify that even further. It doesn't do you much good to get better at your weaknesses in the real world. So I
don't think about it like that though. I think like at a younger age, K through 12, I think you do have to be shown such a wide variety of subjects and of course you're not going to be good at all of them, right?
Sure.
But you have to try in all of them. And then that's how you do discover your strengths and your passions. And that's how you do start to think about what you want to major in, what kind of career you want. So like, I still want this variety, you know, for sure.
Yeah. I think kids have to develop a basic level of competency, right? In everything. They have to be able to write. You have to be able to submit a job application. You have to be able to write a sentence, but I don't know. I just felt like there could have been more guidance in certain directions. There could have been more examining. What are you actually good at? Like, who are you as a person? And how can we nurture that more and understand that that's the direction you might want to go in?
That's an interesting point though. That makes me think about like, how different and how amazing it would be if schools valued you as an individual. Oh my gosh. Like that's kind of what it comes down to, is like, instead of just being like a number and you have to do the same as it's same for everyone. But but how would that happen? I mean, that individual sort of attention, I don't know if that's possible.
Maybe more in the later years. I don't know. What do you think, Aubrey?
Well, I do feel like the neighborhood school that my children have attended for elementary, I have been so impressed with the administration and the teachers. I do feel like they know my kids so well, and the communication with parents is excellent. And there is a lot of, my son has ADHD and he had to be pulled out for reading intervention, and they were able to help him improve and pass kids in the other classrooms so fast. Wow. I was just amazed what they were able to do. And with all the conversations and meetings I had with them, it was very clear to me that they knew really well his strengths and his weaknesses and were able to help him more on an individual basis. And they are a little limited where they're working with big classrooms. Sure. But I do feel like so many teachers make such strides in really getting to know their students and teaching to, their different learning style and helping meet them where they are. And that's great. Is amazing. Teachers are amazing. And
You've got a gem of a school.
Are able to do that.
Sounds like it.
Lucky.
It seems that I think maybe we've just gotten lucky.
I think, I mean, with public schools in the States, it really is hit or miss.
It's a toss up.
I mean, it's like they're all called public schools, but depending on the neighborhood, it could be awesome or really terrible. My friend's son also has ADHD and dyslexia as well. And only now, like he transferred to a new school, and it's only now, like we're in the third quarter or whatever, like the year is over halfway done. Only now is the school developing, what do you call it? An individual learning plan, Aubrey, like an ILP or whatever. Only now are they starting to do that. So basically he has lost like over half a year of school because it it wasn't taught where that he can understand. Right.
Yeah, so that's really tragic. And that certainly does happen.
Yeah. I hope that schools can move away a little bit more from, I feel like when I was a kid, I was always trying to memorize for the test. And then I would forget what I learned. Like I would know, okay, time to dump the information.
Totally. And I do feel like schools are moving away from that based on my experience with my children. My daughter's in high school right now. And I see the projects she does, right? And where they're choosing these amazing books and then really diving into the text and doing it. Yeah, it's not memorizing facts for a test. That's how it was when I was a kid too.
Oh yeah.
So I do feel like education in general is improving, is seeing what's needed, is evolving, and it's getting better. Yeah.
Good. Because it needs to reflect the market, the world. When we need to get a job, we need to have the actual skills that will help us get a job and be employed and succeed. Yeah.
Right. Because like what you're talking about, the only skill that we learned there is how to pass a test.
Yeah, basically, how to memorize.
I was really good at that. I can memorize stuff and pass a test. Does that skill help me in the real world? Or no?
Right. Exactly.
Like, we never learn stuff in order to forget it next week, right? Like that's really good stuff.
Yeah. No, guys, this has been awesome. What a cool conversation. Once again, I feel like I could talk for an hour. We could sit here and chat for an hour. But guys, these are great topics for IELTS, the conversation topics that you would have, the ideas you'd be able to respond to the examiner when you got a good question, to be able to speak for 2 minutes and speaking part 2. All really good stuff. So sign up for the program, Conversations and Coffee. Guys, where can they go to sign up?
Just go to allearsenglish.com/foundation. fast. You'll get a lesson every Wednesday. It'll take you 20 to 30 minutes to complete, and you're going to learn new vocabulary. You're going to have a chance to listen and interact, and you can listen to it over and over if you want to make sure you'll be able to have transcripts so you can make sure you understand every word. And then a quiz to make sure you're understanding. There's so much value in these lessons, you guys.
So good. Yeah,
I just want to note really fast that when students ask how they can, improve their listening scores.
Yeah.
Or like any scores on IELTS, it's not about just doing test practice. That doesn't improve your scores. Right. You can do 20 listening sections. Are you going to improve your score? You have to widen that out. You have to improve your overall comprehension, your overall listening fluency, speaking fluency, if you're going to improve your scores, right? So this is a great example of how you can actually really improve your English.
So good.
And that is reflected in the IELTS scores.
Yes. And then we get to move on from IELTS and move on with our lives, go to that new country where we want to be and live our dream life. I love it. So guys, go to allearsenglish.com/fast and sign up today. Thanks, guys. This has been fun as always.
Yes. Awesome.
All right. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Both hands.
Bye.
Bonus tip. Get a 7 or higher with the All Ears English app, featuring real-time transcripts and vocabulary practice that will push your score higher. Plus, fun video lessons with Lindsay, Michelle, and Jessica. Download the app today at allearsenglish.com/app.